Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Presence Posse Presents. I am Miriam Siegel, and Danielle McMahon is with me today. And we're going to see if we can get some other people to join us as well from the posse. We'll see what happens. Today, we're talking about presence and uncertainty, and we're not certain.
Right.
So, and we're just going to be in that uncertainty. And how does that sound to you, those of you who are watching? So, just so you know, I have a couple of techie things as we still get used to this Facebook broadcasting changes. So I might look a bit sort of blank in my face as I try to figure out if things are working or not. And I'm going to get Danielle to start by talking a little bit about the topic presence and uncertainty. I just want to mention before I do that I did write on the event that we've been doing this for 3 years and we had no idea. Speaking of uncertainty, we had no idea what was going to happen, and we still have no idea what's going to happen. And we keep coming back because we want to come back and we want to be here with you. So that's the first introduction to uncertainty. Where you go, Danielle.
All right. Thank you, Miriam. I appreciate you doing all the techie things. As if it were up to me, that would be a certainty that it would not happen. It just would not. I am not fully committed to being the tech person, right? I've entered a time of learning a certain amount of tech because of the uncertainty of being able to meet in person that arose during the years that we were starting. Probably if this is 24 and we started in 21, then yeah, we were just coming out of COVID and we'd all been through a big period of uncertainty, and we were all trying to figure out a way to bring our expertise to the people that would benefit from our expertise, right? Like, this seemed like a really good way to do it. There were half a dozen people in this program together, and Miriam said, how about we do a Facebook Live? And, there was a certain amount of, is anybody going to listen to a Facebook Live for an hour? Does anybody have that kind of attention span anymore? So we were uncertain of that. And we were uncertain of what even our really desired outcomes, I think, were for gathering this way, except that we knew that we wanted to get this message to people that needed this message, that presence is so, I want to say powerful, but also essential to enjoying our lives, right? Like, we have been through a huge upheaval, and how you got through it partly was how present you were to the possibilities that existed within that time. And I did a lot of my own Facebook Lives during that year or so of the whole shutdown, lockdown thing. And I did a lot of look at the good things that are coming out of it. It could be that we're in a chrysalis, that we're just turning to mush and we're going to come out better for it. And that wasn't a very common view in the people that I associated with at the time. I was working in retail, so I saw a lot of people at that period of time, and not very many of them were looking for the good. They were looking for, a return to normal. And I kept saying, maybe not. I don't know that there's going to be a return to normal. And many, many things have changed since then, and I think are going to continue to change. So presence and uncertainty is always going to be, in my mind, a valid topic. Like, we are always facing a certain amount of uncertainty. There are things we just don't know.
Yeah, I think, and I do sort of recognize and respect the need to get back to normal, which in a way is, I see it as looking for a comfy place,
Mhm.
a familiar place, something that feels safe. I can breathe out. I don't have to be, especially for people who are challenged by this hypervigilance. They're really, really like hyper aware. It can be exhausting and feel really, really overwhelming. And our nervous systems, it's in our biology, our nervous systems are hardwired to find the comfy place.
Mhm.
I mean, this is part of the reason we survived, I imagine, all of these years. It's kind of like when you put your hand on a hot stove and it burns, you know that you might not want to do that again.
Not comfy.
Right?
Not
Or, run into a bear, you might not want to do that again, or at least learn how to take precautions or learn when is the stove hot and when isn't it hot. So there is that awareness, and then our nervous system gets kind of thrown off balance when what we know is no longer what we know. And then we need to be maybe more vigilant. We're learning new things, but we don't really know. It's all like the ground has moved, or what even have that expression, having the rug pulled out from under us. It's kind of like, where did the ground go? And then trying to maneuver. And I work as a psychotherapist and coach, and I mentioned this before, that part of, I guess I would say, the training in therapy and coaching is to expand a window of tolerance. So what do we tolerate? How much can we handle? And is our window too narrow so that maybe we overreact or we stay in heightened states of awareness and fear, and we can't bring ourselves down, and then we start looking for anything to make ourselves feel better, and sometimes
that
medicine or whatever.
that seems really reasonable to me, that you would want to be able to tolerate a certain amount of uncertainty in your life, and that some people are better able to do that than others, but also maybe resilience.
Mhm.
So if the rug is jerked out from underneath you, that you know that you can find your feet again, right? That I don't know if that's so much you want to tolerate the rug being jerked out from underneath you, but you want to know that you have the ability to recover from that, so that if everything suddenly changes, and quite often it suddenly changes, right? I see these posts from time to time, like, life can change in a moment. So enjoy what you enjoy this moment, because you don't know. I mean, and often also in the recovery community, we talk about tomorrow's not promised, right? Like, nothing is promised to be the same that it was all throughout our life for the next moment, the next day, the next year. There are many things that can disturb that. There's a lot of big weather things going on in our country right now. There's a lot of tornadoes, a lot of natural disaster type things, and that changes your normal in an instant, your feeling of certainty about what your town looks like, your home looks like, all of those things. And it's not something I want to tolerate, right? So I want to know that I can recover from that. So yeah, I like that window of tolerance, and expanding the window of tolerance, but also expanding your resilience by being able to be present to what is without taking it to worst case scenario, right? Like, we're already there. So how about we go best case scenario out of that? I mean, other things can happen in an instant as well. We can lose loved ones. We can lose our health. We can, face all kinds of um, uncomfortable uncertainties. But some uncertainties are not even that uncomfortable, like growth. Yeah. Like us forming the Presence Posse. Maybe that was uncomfortable, but it wasn't like full of grief or sadness or some of the things that come along with the disastrous type of things that I was just talking about.
And having said that, thank you. Even in forming the Presence Posse, there is this whole thing about, okay, live online. And some of us had experience with that and some of us didn't. And some of us felt maybe uncomfortable and some of us didn't, even whether we had experience or not. We approach it differently. There's an idea of equating discomfort with disability.
Mm.
Right? If this seems uncomfortable, it seems scary, I won't be able to handle it. So discomfort becomes disability. And a lot of times when I work with people, I hear that come up a lot. And it's an underlying thing they don't even think about. They're actually thinking. They just react with, I don't want this. I'm not going to do it. I avoid it. Whatever. I have to change this. I have to stop it, whatever the discomfort is. And then it's like, why not get curious about it instead?
Mm-hmm.
Like, know that even if you don't think you can handle it, you can learn how to handle it. That's a game changer. It's like, it's not, I can't handle it. It's like, I don't know how to handle this particular situation, which is an automatic opening for, I can learn something. So that I will be able to do it. And that also plays into the resilience. Then it's easier to bounce back. So it's like not that black and white. If it's uncomfortable, I can't manage. Or if it's uncomfortable, I don't want to feel it. You don't have much choice necessarily, whether you're going to feel discomfort or not. So it's kind of like, here it is. That's the beauty of presence, right?
Yes.
This is what is. Here it is. What do you do now? And I think, and Eckhart says, and I won't word this properly, but it's like, stay, leave, or change it. Right? And if you're going to stay, it's again, learn how to, what can you do? What can you not do? Just be whatever. If you can't change it, or if there's something that's completely unacceptable about it, leave. But there's that also, like, make the best out of whatever situation it is, taking the action that you need to take and trusting that even if you make a mistake, because you don't know necessarily what the best option is, it's not a mistake. It's still I'm learning something.
Yeah, and I think that cultivating curiosity is a theme that we've found within the Presence Posse over the years, that's a wonderful way to meet uncertainty, right? Like, so what might be possible here? Is a much more productive, more enjoyable way to meet uncertainty than the fearful and disabling kind of reaction that can also happen. And also, I think one of the themes that we've kind of come up with throughout the time that we've spent discussing all these different topics and presence is that, and now I've forgotten it, so I'll have to come back to it.
Aren't you certain what you were going to say?
Yeah, no, it just left. It was cultivating curiosity and the possibilities, but I can't remember exactly. I had it and now it's gone. So maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. But it's the possibilities that are there, being a possibilitarian, right? Like, not so much a constricting of what you think can happen, but an expansion of what you think can happen.
Yeah. And in a way, who you think you are. Because again, if the way I meet a situation is I can't handle it, I have that underlying belief about myself is like, this is going to be too much, I can't handle it. It's I can create that world for myself just by believing that. But if I meet that, even that, I love the question, how do you know? With that understanding, I don't want to do this, I can't handle it, it's going to go bottoms up, whatever. It's like, how do you know? You don't know. So, what else can happen? Yeah, I mean, it could. It could go bottom up. It could go wonderfully. It could go, but I mean, things could go wrong. It could hurt. You might feel shame. You might, whatever, need some processing time. And what else? And what else?
So I remembered the other thing that I was going to say that's become a theme within the Presence Posse is extending yourself grace for those moments when you did make a choice that didn't go the way that you would have hoped it would go. We
Mhm.
all are human. We all make those mistakes. We all have the opportunity to learn from them, and beating ourselves up for that does not help. It doesn't help us learn the lesson. It doesn't help us move forward. It has that contraction energy. And I think that's why I was like, okay, it has something to do with expanding or contracting energy. Yeah. So if you're able to extend yourself grace as a human who makes human foibles, right? Then you can go on and you can not have to contract from that and beat yourself up over it and let your inner voice start talking some kind of smack to you, right? Because they do. That inner voice seems quite conditioned to talking smack to us about us. So that's something that we have the ability to think about what we think about. And you kind of alluded to that earlier. It's something that we don't even think about thinking about, right? It just happens. It's just a reaction. But if we develop that, and I don't know that Eckhart's the only place I've heard it, but other places as well, take that observer role
Mm.
and look at ourselves as perhaps we would a young child, perhaps we would someone that we could easily extend compassion to. And then that helps us develop the grace for the mistakes or lessons or misfortunes, right? Like maybe it's not something that we seem to have made the choice. It seems to have been made, and we are just here to deal with the uncertainty of it. Then all of those things can be enhanced by being compassionate with ourselves and thinking about what we're thinking about and making sure that we are, instead of our own worst enemy and critic, our own best friend.
Mm.
And that is part of being present um, in my estimation. It has something to do with not being judgmental of ourselves, and then we can extend that as well to other people and to other situations where the judgment's not helping. Yes, it may be costing us something in human connection, whether it's with our own human or with other humans.
Yep. I think for many of us who have experienced being judged by other people, and especially by the people we esteemed
Mm,
highest, that it's easy to go into I have to be better. I have to do, I have to master. I won't master this, so I'm going to avoid it. So
mm,
as not to lose face or to not have to feel shame or not to shame myself in front of other people and be judged by them. And I think um, it can, well, what we don't tend to see is that what we've started to do from probably a very young age is to take over that job of judging ourselves.
mhm,
They've been judging us, so we take over that job and we judge ourselves instead of being the support system for ourselves that we wish other people had been for us.
mm,
And the ability to cultivate curiosity or be curious is to also understand that, okay, I would like to have done that differently, or I would like that situation to have gone differently, but I couldn't and it didn't. And that's what is. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not wrong because of that. And if I did something I think is wrong, it just meant I wasn't able to do it any differently in that moment. Because if I had been able to do it differently in that moment, I would have done it. Right. So it's actually learning to be the support system and the acceptance and the openness and the welcoming and all of that we didn't get from the people we wish we had gotten it from. Because that makes uncertainty much easier to deal with. It's like if I think, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get hit. If I make a mistake, I'm going to fail or lose my job or whatever huge thing we can make into some sort of catastrophe. If that's the way I need to go, and if I'm used to being in my world, then making a mistake, it can be suffocating. Whereas if I'm just making a mistake, it's just, okay, I did this, that's all I could do, and that's what it was. What am I going to learn from this? And sometimes those lessons can be pretty hard, but it's still a lesson. Then uncertainty becomes much easier to be with, because we don't have the fear attached to it that we risk losing everything, generally speaking. I mean, there are some situations where if I do that and it goes wrong, I lose everything. But generally speaking, most situations aren't like that. So it's not certain, but it's okay. There are solutions there. I just have to find them and may need to reach out to some people or go very deep within myself to find them, but just know that I can do that. And there's nothing wrong with me. Like, my identity is not attached to having to do everything right and having to know everything ahead of time, because we pretend that we know stuff and we don't know it. We don't.
Yeah. You said something towards the beginning of that I felt like we could expand on too, and it was, I'm having a time today. I had it and now it's gone.
Would you like to take a pen and paper and take notes?
Maybe I should. Maybe I should write down what I wanted to expand on, because I think it was the story we tell ourselves after the mistake, right? Like, if we did something that we feel like is a mistake and that we should have said something differently or done something differently, then there's a tendency, at least I've had the tendency in the past, of replaying that in my mind. I should have said this, I should have done this, I should have done, and then they would have said, and I would have said, and now I'm keeping the whole story alive and keeping it just going and going and going, instead of like, okay, it did happen and it's done. If it were to come up again, perhaps I could handle it differently, which is totally different than I should have.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that does lapse in my head and doesn't do me much good. Whereas if I say, well, okay, that's done. What I said, I did what I did. And what would I have liked to do differently if that situation comes up again? Then that becomes productive, right? But if you're just rehashing something that you can't go back and do over, that's not productive. That's just another way of holding on to that situation and not letting it evolve and letting it teach us and letting it become something in the past that we can let go of. Yeah. And the more the emotions are intense or attached around that, or the more we identify with our emotions of that, then the harder it's going to be for us to break free of that and let those things move the way that, because that's another thing that's not encouraged, is that we're not particularly taught, in my opinion, emotional wellness, right? Or emotional intelligence, or that it's just energy and motion, and it can move and it can change, and it does very quickly, but we're not taught that, and so we tend to repress them, and then they keep. Right? So some of what we do in Presence Posse is giving people permission to let go of the past, right? Like, the way that we hold on to that with our emotions, our memories around those emotions, our thoughts, of the past that hinder us from being present to uncertainty, those are things people need help with to be present. They're things I needed help with
Mm.
to learn to be present. So I assume I'm not alone in that.
Well, the idea is, what have you ever really gotten out of self-persecution? I mean, where does that actually get you? What tends to happen with self-persecution is, as you say, it just perpetuates something. We don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel like we're useless and less worthy and horrible or whatever. So we try and push it down. We try to avoid it, or we keep it going, as you mentioned, ruminating on it to try and pretend that we would have done something differently. But
Mhm.
we wouldn't have done something differently, or we would have done something differently. We couldn't do anything differently. That's why we did what we did. The next time, maybe we can do something differently. But then we don't ruminate. We sit. We can look at the situation knowing that it's over. So we don't go into the emotions of it and
Mhm.
relive it and relive it and relive it as if it's still happening. We look at it and go, okay, that's what happened there. I did that. I heard that. I understood that. Ooh, I probably misunderstood that. Or I was assuming that that person really was trying to do, or whatever.
Mhm.
And then, okay, take responsibility for my part. And then open to the possibility that if a similar situation ever arose, it's not the same situation. So I don't have to do the same thing. So I don't have to be afraid of that. I
Mhm.
do have new information I've incorporated and integrated into my being so that I can do something differently next time. And if I can't, for some reason, then I couldn't. And again, we're looking at, okay, something else was missing from the equation. But there is no real benefit to self-persecution. It's not going to get you anywhere except staying where you are and stewing that brew, that witch's brew, that isn't necessarily helping you with getting on with your life and becoming more certain of yourself, which is implied in self-mastery and mastery. There's an idea of being better acquainted with myself so that I can trust myself, so that I know that I don't have to be frightened of uncertainty, but be aware that it shows up.
That's an interesting thought or theme or something, that uncertainty lies outside of you,
Mm,
right? Like maybe it is the uncertainty of our ability to handle change. So maybe the uncertainty can be um, brought into presence of self mastery, and then you have a certainty, regardless of the changes that you do face. Yeah, that was really good, Miriam.
I thank you.
Yes. Bring that from an outer uncertainty to the inner uncertainty, and then being able to be present with that and improve that by understanding that you do have that ability to um, learn and grow and be resilient and not have to depend on markers outside of yourself to feel certain.
Mm.
Mm.
Yes, because I can create an experience of uncertainty, which will generally be some sort of fear thing in
Mhm.
myself in the face of some situation whose outcome I don't know. I mean, what outcome do we know guaranteed? We don't ever, right? Generally, we can get an impression of something, and things can be quite different than what our impression is. So, generally speaking, we don't know outcomes, but we don't always think about them, and we don't always live in the uncertainty as some sort of fearful, dangerous thing. So that kicks in usually when something in our mind is going on. Like, ooh, I don't know about that, and I should know about that, and I need to know about that, and I need to fix that, and then it starts. But uncertainty is around us all the time because all we have is right now. The only moment we have is right now.
Yeah.
And right now, generally speaking, is not a problem. So even like right now, I'm handling things just fine, thank you. And right now, I'm still handling things just fine. And right now, so I can create a problem for myself, an uncertainty around just about anything, and create a fear state in myself by partly assuming that I won't be able to figure it out, or I won't be able to handle it, as I mentioned before. Or one of the things I've heard very often people say is, have faith. That's a thing I've heard quite often. And my mother was one of those, I love my mother, but she used to always say, oh, it'll be fine. Like if we came home with something, we had an exam or we had whatever, it could have been something really big, really important. Am I going to get a job? I don't have enough money to pay for food at the end of the month or whatever it was. You're going to lose the house. You might want to look at that. Oh, it'll be fine. So there's that sort of have faith. I have never really, it has never worked for me, this idea of having faith. Because for me, the way I understand faith is assuming that things will go well. I have absolutely no idea how things are going to go. So I will tend to say trust. Because that has to do with me. This is not trusting other people to do what I want them to do, or trusting them to behave the way I want them to behave, because I trust people to do and be exactly the way they are and how they do. I trust myself to be able to handle it. So again, it comes back to, how am I meeting these situations? How present am I? How am I meeting them? How much uncertainty am I putting in my experience, which will get in the way most likely with my ability to be curious, to notice, to integrate, incorporate, if that makes any sense.
It does, there's such fine lines to walk, I think, sometimes, because we talk about being present. Also, we plan. We set goals, we anticipate things, and all those things are here. So he may make an appearance eventually. I thought he was going to come over right now, but he ran away.
You weren't certain, but you thought.
I wasn't certain, and he was not certain. He thought maybe running away was the better option. And those are choices we make in those moments. Like, we have an anticipation of pleasure. That's something that we're going towards. We have an anticipation of pain. That's something that we're either going to avoid or brace against. And often the bracing against makes it more painful. Like from the time we start thinking about it, it's painful, right? So those are and you've told in the past on the Posse talks that you have learned not to brace against certain things that you expect to be painful, and have actually gotten through them without experiencing pain. So we know those things are possible. They're not prevalent, right? They're not things that we're taught that are common for people to experience. You're going to have a blood draw. No. My body is perfectly capable of handling a blood draw.
So I'm laughing. Sometimes I laugh, and you've actually brought this up, that I laugh really easily at myself. When I was, I think, about 11. Well, actually, there were two different things. I had a blood test, and I was my first really big blood test. It might have been my very first blood test. And they took like 6 vials of I didn't have any blood left. I was this itty bitty little thing. I didn't weigh anything. And I sat and I was like through the entire thing, but the whole time noticing that, okay, this is new, this is scary, and I'm fine. I'm still fine. I'm still fine.
Right?
But another time I was going to have a vaccination, and one of the other people in the class, I saw her get vaccinated, and she went because of the pain. And so when it was my turn, I almost passed out. I was so scared. And again, like the amount of pain compared with what I thought it was going to be because I'd seen her was so nothing, but I still got I turned so pale. And they took me back to the nurse's office and had me lie down because I started to get really faint. And then I learned something. It's like, it was none of those things were that bad.
Right? It's the anticipation of it
Yeah.
is often worse than the actual thing. The
Yeah.
anticipation for many, many of us, I think, as humans on our little earthly walk, the anticipation of the dentist is often much worse than the actual dental visit, right?
Yeah.
There are just certain things that we
That's a good
have
word.
a painful anticipation of, and we make them worse by doing that, by staying in the certainty of this is going to be horrible. The certainty of our judgment about it, right?
But that's a great word, anticipation.
Yeah.
Because how much time do we spend, generally speaking, in anticipation, which is future vision?
Mhm.
And again, we can't know. And pain is very different for different people. Some people can experience a great deal of pain having some situation. And for me, it can be completely different.
Mhm.
And as you say, we didn't learn that. Generally speaking, we didn't learn it in school, but doesn't mean we can't learn it now.
Right.
So we can always learn it. When I did the fire walk, I walked barefoot on burning coals, for people who don't know what that is. And I remember looking, and I was not going to be the first one. I had just decided. I knew it was going to be fine. Like, I had been doing this forever in all kinds of tribes. I mean, it's a thing. But I still wanted to see it done first so that I kind of knew what it was about. But that was the only thing. It was like obvious it was going to be fine as long as I did what I needed to do. When I got to the other side, I was so shocked because even all I knew, I didn't know that it would be like that until I'd done it. And
So
then
what was it that you were trained to do to be able to not experience the burn?
it was, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like with hypnosis. I've actually done this with hypnosis as well, is where someone pinched me as hard as they could. Sometimes they'll take a needle and put it through your skin. I don't feel a thing. Not at all. Don't feel anything. Because we don't have to hyper focus on, and as you say, contract, right? The hyper focus on the anticipation, the pain, or the burn, or what could possibly go wrong. Again, we don't know. So what's actually happening? Well, I'm standing here breathing. I'm maybe in an altered state. I'm open. I'm curious. I'm certainly not focusing on the burning part.
I just
Yeah.
That's so silly.
Oh,
Okay, Jasmine.
I'm loving all this uncertainty. Yeah.
I am nothing if not flexible. So
Yes.
that's one way to deal with uncertainty, is to be flexible.
Which is something you can learn. Rigidity, or the need for control, is again often an under-evaluation of our ability to handle things. I need to be rigid. I need to control everything. I need everything to be perfect, for example. And all y'all out there, we can't necessarily see your comments. We're still trying to figure out how to get this thing to work. But please let us know if any of this resonates, because I know some of you out there have some perfectionistic tendencies, or maybe some anticipation things, or, okay, I won't assume that you do, but if you're human, you might have some kind of propensity for some control needs or rigidity or perfectionism or whatever, or obsessive compulsive behavior, whatever. This is not a judgment. It's just like we all do it in some form or another. And then it is, again, that sort of idea of calming myself, giving myself something to do that calms me down, that's familiar, that I know, so that I don't have to just be in the uncertainty, which I equate with disaster, pain, discomfort, and not small discomfort, lots of discomfort, right? It becomes that sort of trying to keep me safe from discomfort, really, because we don't know. It's likely not a catastrophe.
Right.
I mean, unless it is. And then as well, I mean, anything can happen. Some people may and will die. Some people are injured. Some people get ill. Some people's homes are destroyed. Some people go broke. I mean, there are very serious things that happen in the world. And it's like everything is in motion. Everything is in motion. So my house went to pieces. I mean, I'm going to bring up some of my situations where I've been in situations where it's like, I shouldn't even be here. But the fact of the matter is, as I was able to stay present and notice, solutions presented themselves, or people showed up to help. It was amazing. I was able to see them, able to do things for myself that I would likely not have been able to do if I had just closed down and blocked things, gone into contraction because I was terrified and made the assumption that it was the end of my life somehow. So,
and quite often I think when we get that kind of tunnel vision, right, like, then we hear this saying that the light at the end of the tunnel is not the oncoming train, right? Like, we can be in that tunnel vision, see the light, and still go, I'm gonna die, right? We can see that light as the end of the tunnel. We can always reframe. We can always kind of develop that curiosity, wonder what that light is. Yeah, because we don't know. We can take the next step closer and find what it is. We can step into it with an open heart. I want to say open mind, but it's more an open heart, right? Like we are going to be safe in it, whatever it is. And that's just, I guess it's counterintuitive because that's not how we're marketed to. That's not what we're bombarded with constantly, is that we're going to be safe and that we are competent and capable. And yeah, we're always marketed to, you need this thing to make you complete or to keep you safe or to make you acceptable to others. And that kind of making other uncertain, right? Like making other people uncertain instead of allowing us to sort of instinctually know who we can trust and who we can ask for help and who will actually support us, instead of that don't ever show that you need anyone else. Yeah.
There is a level of discernment. I mean, we talk about, okay, being present and not jumping to conclusions about outcomes and all of that because we don't know. There is, and you did bring up, we do still plan. There's a difference between living in the future plan and planning. So I'm still here right now. Like, as you say, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't mean I'm just going to, oh, well, I don't know what it is and I'm safe and I trust myself. So I'm just going to stand on the tracks and make the best of it. It's kind of like, well, you could.
The light's coming down tracks. Maybe it is a train.
Do I hear anything? Do I notice vibrations in the ground? Like, what more information is available to me than the light only? Is there more? do I notice? Is it trying to tell? What do I think it's trying to tell me? And I might be wrong, but at some point, I do actually have to make some sort of decision, either to stay there and take my chances, or I understand that, okay, the light is actually not a train, it's something else. Or, yeah, I need to get out of the way, or I want to get out of the way because I'm not able to be sure about what this is. So I would rather err on the side of caution. I'll step to the side off the tracks and see what happens. And then maybe, I don't know, some dog with a light on its head comes by and I go, oh, well, okay, right? But I didn't know. If I can't know, I can't know. And that's an uncertainty that is very often uncomfortable for people. They have to make a decision somehow and they don't know what to do. Especially, I talk about ambivalence a lot. When things seem to be equally challenging, which one do I choose? And it can feel life and death at times to make that choice. And it's like, guess what? Choose. If you can't know for certain one or the other, if you can't get any more information and you have to choose, then you choose. And sometimes we choose and it's painful, and sometimes we choose and yay, I won the lottery. There's that element of discernment, allowing ourselves to glean more information, more sensory experience, whatever, to make more, maybe Bobby would call it more useful decisions, more helpful decisions. And sometimes we just don't know. And just being with that, I don't know for certain, and there's nothing more I can know right now, as far as I know. And I can handle it. It becomes
I know how to put my foot in front of the other, and take those small steps, and not like one giant leap. But maybe you want to take giant leap. Maybe that is in your personality, right? Or in your best interest in that moment. I don't generally like giant leaps, and I've made a few in my life, and they've been fun. And I've gained a lot from those giant leaps. But I'm pretty certain before I take them, right? Like I've gained enough knowledge to expect that when I take that giant leap, I'm going to land softly, I'm going to fly, I'm going to be taught, I'm going to, something is going to happen other than me smashing like the coyote at the bottom of the cliff. So yeah, I mean, different circumstances call for a different kind of presence, I think, in the sense that whether I eat peanut butter and jelly or salad for lunch is not the same level of decision as what job am I going to take, accept, right? Like that. So I don't have to be terribly present to make a choice for lunch. I might if I'm allergic to peanuts.
Yes.
That makes it a whole different level of decision. But there are times in our lives when uncertainty seems so overwhelming that we need to make smaller steps where all we can do is put that one foot in front of the other, and to be able to say that that's appropriate, it's okay, that's the pace that I'm going at right now. And I have taken all different paths of paces, and forwards and backwards and sideways and underneath and over the top and all around, because that's part of being human. It is part of the journey, is to find out what all those different reactions bring.
And to the extent that you have the opportunity to choose, or feel you have the opportunity to choose. I mean, some situations, the choices are quite different. I will mention one in a moment if I recall it, if I remember to mention it. But the idea of, if I need more time and I'm experiencing things as going too quickly, I don't have time to think, I don't have time to reflect, I don't have time to take things in, then as far as possible, I can use my mastery and my responsibility and say, I need to slow things down.
Mm-hmm.
I need to ask more questions. I need you to repeat that. I need to do something differently than what's happening right now or what I'm doing right now. It's not working for me. So to the extent that is possible, and sometimes we have to do it or we choose to do it anyway, even knowing that the other person's reaction or the situation might be unpleasant
Mm-hmm.
to experience. But it's knowing, it's being in touch with myself, present to myself enough to know that this is, I'm not getting the information I need or whatever it is, and then putting that into some sort of statement about what I do need and seeing if I can make that actually happen for myself. Because not everybody is willing to meet me where I am, but it is certainly my responsibility to make sure that is communicated in some way in that sort of situation. I'm just going to bring up really quickly situations that, generally speaking, are unexpected. Or maybe in this particular case, I honestly don't know if I was inattentive or just lacked experience. But at one point in my life, I was somewhere and I heard the person call my name. So I went around the corner to meet the person, and the person had a gun pointed at me. This was not something I expected to happen. So as I say, it may be that I just wasn't present. It may be that I was not experienced. But generally speaking, if somebody called my name, it was not to point a gun at me.
And it
So
was a voice you recognized.
it was a person, I knew who it was. I was in a situation where I knew who it was. And so when the person called my name, I just went like you would.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were in your house and you heard your husband call your name, you would probably go there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't know that there was a person standing beside him with a gun, it would be like, because you didn't
Right.
know. So this was the kind of experience like gun. And interestingly enough, that's the kind of thing where it can appear as if I don't have a lot of time. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to happen. Do we ever? The situation can seem very dangerous. I got so dead present that the detail with which I took in information was amazing. And I can still see quite clearly when I conjure it up in my memory what he looked like, what he was wearing, what was behind him in the room, the whole thing. And it's the idea of, again, not going into, I'm going to die. I mean, I'm not saying I've never done that. I can't recall ever having done it, but well, yes, I can. Yes, I can actually. I can recall having had that reaction. I was much younger. But in this particular case, thank goodness, I had a lot of training in presence and I stayed present. And that situation could have possibly gone way worse because I knew right now he's not shooting me. Right now he's not shooting me. Right now he's not shooting me. And I just kept talking and I gathered some information and I did what I needed to do. And it took a while, took a few months, and I got away. But the point is, we can't always be prepared. We don't always have time for the discernment ahead of time, right? And then again, there's that anticipation or not. But getting into a situation that's a split-second car accident or somebody passes away really quickly or something happens that fast, unexpectedly or seemingly unexpectedly, where having trained presence, even if we go out of presence and we do freak out or whatever, we can come back. Again, the resilience of it. We can come back to presence and take in, again, the information, whatever we notice that may be useful to us, that will assist us, or how we can assist ourselves in a situation. So, if I'm going to use the expression have faith at all, I would say allow yourself the faith to know that you can train your presence muscles to be stronger and stronger and stronger. That's where I would go with that.
Yeah, I think that if you have faith in your presence, if you have faith in your discernment, so when you do have time to make a choice, that you can trust yourself to discern what is accurate about this situation, what is accurate about the choices you're faced with, that's a muscle to develop as well. Yeah. Practice. Practice trusting yourself, practice having faith in your own discernment, and practice being non-judgmental and a possibilitarian, and all of those things that we've sort of become themes within our posse, right? That we can cultivate all of these things, we can practice all of these things, and we can learn, right? Like, we in our practice probably aren't going to be perfect. We're probably going to make some mistakes. Well, I thought I was present to that, and I thought I made a proper choice, and I really didn't like that outcome. So, what will I do next? Not so much what should I have done.
Mm-hmm.
What will I do next? And
Mm.
all of those things are things we want to encourage ourselves and one another um, to practice and to share your experience with whoever needs to hear it, so that we can all start to develop that feeling of mutual support and collaboration and sharing our actual experience and not our facade.
Hmm. Hmm. I think remember to be human.
Mhm.
It's like, I guess the idea that we are created in God's image can be very confusing. It's not like we were created God. And I mean, some people would say that we were. I'm not going to have that. I don't need that argument. At least I'm not going to have that discussion right now. But we are definitely created human. And so all that entails, and it's like, let yourself be human. Even the beautiful thing that you said is, I thought I was present and I wasn't. It's like, yeah, we can be pretty present and still there's that little bit of not present, right? And then it's like, okay, I needed to learn something there.
That little bit of investment in control.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like, if I
Oh, oops,
just that one little, yeah. And we don't necessarily know that until after, because there was
right.
so much
Because we're
to
just
learn.
practicing being
Yeah.
present.
So I will invite anybody who's watching, if you have any questions or there's something you'd like to learn or delve more deeply into with us, you are welcome to contact us. And as I say that, I'm going to put up your information on the screen here, Danielle, and ask you if there's anything you have going on or
Ooh.
will be going on.
I have a few spots open for coaching. I consider myself a personal peace coach. So if personal peace is something that you desire and you don't have any idea how to get there, I would be glad to support you in that. We can do a call, and the best way to reach out to me actually is probably on Facebook through Messenger. If we are not friends on Facebook, also send me a request, or it'll go into a file I never see. And and my email is accurate for sure, but put something in the subject line that gets my attention, because I get lots of emails and I'm not brilliant at going through those every day. So I also relatively certain that most people that are watching the posse know I live on a horse ranch, and I'm planning to do some retreats here, and we'll be doing a course in how to do that. So I'll be a certified retreat facilitator at the end of the summer, and that'll be something that I'm looking forward to trying out here and then moving out into different wonderful places and hopefully different wonderful collaborations.
Fantastic. Thank you. And if worse comes to worse, to put it that way, if you need to get hold of Danielle and you're not sure and you're not getting into her messenger or whatever, you can leave a message in the Presence Posse group on Facebook, and she will see it there. Or one of
Especially
us
if
will
you
see it
tag
and let
me.
her know. Yes. Yeah. Or one of us will see and we will let her know. So quickly, just to finish, I'm also accepting some coaching clients at the moment. I have some spaces available. And one of the things I'm doing is working intensively with people who are trying really hard to change habits. You know that thing where you say you're not going to do something and you do it anyway, or you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, and you don't know why you're doing it, or you don't know why you're not doing it, and you wish you knew and you can't seem to change it. I'm working with people like that, breaking promises to themselves. And so it's an intensive work to keep you on track is the idea, to help support you and keep you on track. If that sounds interesting to you, contact me at the contact information at the bottom of the screen. And I am also doing card readings at 50% off. So for those of you who like psychic mediumship readings and you want to give card reading a chance, I'm experiencing it as a little bit of a different flavor, and it's kind of fun. And it also gives you something to see, because when I'm just seeing and relaying the information, you can't see. But when I'm holding a card, you can. So if you want to give it a try, 50% off until the end of May. And you can contact me at that address or go to my website and click on the link there. So that's it for today. Next week, next Monday, which is, I think, the 5th of June, we won't be here because we won't be here. There are so many of us away that there won't be a posse. So the next posse talk, I mean, somebody from the posse might come on and do something, but there's no officially planned Presence Posse Presents in a week's time from now. So we will be back in 2 weeks' time with a really cool trilogy. How does that sound? So let us know in the chat if you think that's exciting, and or if you don't. No anticipation here. We thank everyone who was with us this Posse Talk. And of course, I thank you, Danielle McMahon, my lovely co-conspirator, Posse
Thank
partner.
you, Miriam, for all you do for the posse.
You're very welcome. It is my pleasure. We will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Take care, everyone.